Good morning, everyone. My name is MightyStream, and I'm going to do your May the 25th Spiritual Principle Day in a meditation. If you need to reach me, feel free to do so at recoveryofhope21@gmail.com. Okay, let's get into that meditation screen. Okay, wonderful topic. Humility grounds us. The practice of humility helps us be honest about our circumstances. We learn to live and give within the limits of our lives. Guiding Principles, Tradition 7 for members. In active addiction, we became masters of manipulation. We spun a web of lies so intricate that we began to believe our own nonsense. The admission that we were addicts may have been the first time we had been truly honest with ourselves in years. With this honesty comes an opportunity to look at our lives and where our active addiction leads us. For many of us, being at our lowest low, having lost everything but our lives, and feeling humiliated by our behavior inspires a modicum of honesty and humility. Others of us identified our spiritual and emotional desperation before we destroyed our relationships or lost our material possessions. In either case, an honest assessment leads us to practice humility as we accept that we're no better and no worse than anyone else in the room. As we stay clean, we get to know ourselves better through the process of working the steps. Becoming familiar with our strengths and weaknesses in the sixth step gives us some perspective on what we have to offer the world and the fellowship. And in step 7, we find new freedom in developing a humble and realistic view of ourselves and our resources. Life has a way of nudging us back to the state of humility as new experiences challenge us over time. We learn to stay clean through life's losses, divorce, bankruptcy, death. And we learn to stay humble even as we pursue an education, meet success in our careers, or establish healthy romantic relationships. We do our best to stay grounded in our program by remaining humble. Practicing humility can help us learn how to monitor our emotional well-being and change course before we hit a breaking point. When we lose sight of our humility, we become more vulnerable to overextending ourselves, risking emotional or physical exhaustion. Over time, we learn our limits. Protecting pride and ego takes a back seat to defending healthy boundaries. We begin to learn how to give within our means. Today, I will maintain a realistic perspective on my circumstances and exercise humility and discernment when offering to contribute or serve. Let's take a moment of silence, followed by the we version of Serenity Prayer. Moment of silence now, please. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today. Please and thank you. The practice of humility helps me to be honest about my circumstances. I learn to live and give within the limits of my life. Why is that important to me? That's important to me because when it comes to drawing boundaries, I used to be more of the person that only drew a boundary after I became angry, after I became fed up with being taken advantage of. I would draw stern boundaries. And whatever I was giving or whatever I was doing in that interaction or that relationship, I just stopped. I'd fall off the face of the earth. You wouldn't be able to reach me. Do you guys remember the days where we had beepers? I don't know if people know what beepers are. People that usually have serious jobs like doctors, on call staff for the hospital, they would have pagers, right? They call them pagers or beepers. But it used to be back in the day, uh, you would have a home landline phone number, and you would have a beeper number or a pager number. And this would be a number that someone could call you from their telephone, and it would send off a signal that you're being paged to call this number back. It would go beep, 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 right? It was a beeper. And so that was a form of us being catapulted into this uh, AI season of things where people can reach you without your permission. They can reach out to you without your permission. You can let your family know where you're traveling 100% of the time just by sharing your location of your phone, right? This is the season where I can talk to a person across the pond, on the other side of the world, face to face at a touch of a button. I can see what their house looks like. They can see what my house looks like. They can see what my hairdo is like today. We can look at each other face to face and have a conversation. And pretty much, I don't say free, but for nickels and pennies compared to what it would be to call someone on the telephone that far away. Okay. What's my point? My point is that the boundaries that I set today, they're more decisive. I think about them. They're not like in the olden days where I just never responded to the page or never took the phone call. I don't even know when caller ID came into play. But it used to be if your telephone rang, you just answered it. You had no way of telling who was calling you, right? So today, the season that we're in is a season where we can non-aggressively, without using microaggression, choose what type of relationships we want to interact with. I have people that one moment they're very, very kind, and then the next moment there's all this microaggression. And I choose not to do that type of gaslighting relationships. I choose not to. And I make myself less available to them compared to other people, right? But I am very discerning when I make that decision. I have that ability today. Sometimes what can happen is that because of the inability to look at the full scope of a relationship. And I know here they're talking a little bit about service and staying humble and being humble, how it helps us. But to me, the definition of humility, right? The definition of humility is knowing who I am, what I am, why I am the way I am, and operating out of that. As it says in the beginning part, we learn to live and give within the limits of our lives. Meaning that there's some things about me that make it less likely that I would be able to extend myself in a certain way. So when I know that, I don't just agree to anything. I agree to what I know I can more than likely pull off or do. That is a form of humility. Taking on everything just because it sounds good is a sign of not having boundaries or having too much pride to acknowledge what your boundaries actually are. And then what happens is when I don't draw boundaries appropriately, when I am not operating out of humility, when I take on task and I am wearing this huge cape of Captain Save the World, and I'm saying yes to this, I'm saying yes to that, I'm saying yes to this. What happens is that little pieces of me are broken off day by day, moment by moment, and my sense of personal well-being is robbed. So now, as I am going into a situation to do whatever I said I would do, when I said yes and I really meant no, or should have meant no, in a spirit of humility, been able to say, I'm coming, seems like I'm waking up here, guys, right? So when that happens, I get myself into a situation where I've said yes and I mean no. But now I'm in the situation and I have nothing but attitude. I'm judgmental, I'm short-tempered, I'm not approachable, my way or the highway, right? I mean, why not? I agreed to come do it after all. I'm here. That's not how life works. The only type of person that would accept that energy from someone is another unhealthy, unhealed individual. That type of person would embrace my attitude that I'm bringing to the table, because they don't know that they can draw a boundary and say, you know what, it sounds like today you might not want to actually, it sounds like today that you really don't want to be here and participate. So how about this? Why don't you excuse yourself, because you're draining the energy of whatever it is I'm trying to do that I invited you to and you said yes to, but you meant no. So let me be the first one to excuse you and say, thank you, but no, thank you. I don't need to accept that. What you bringing to the table, what you putting down, I'm not trying to pick up. So your excuse. We can talk about it later. I really don't have time to go into details right now. But when you come and you have agreed to come, when you know that you have the capability and the willingness to perform, I don't believe every service opportunity I need to say yes to. I don't believe that. I don't believe when people ask me to share that you never say no. I don't believe that. I believe, based on what is going on in my life, I agree or I don't agree. And that is humility, because there is nothing worse than doing service with someone that has nothing but attitude. They don't realize who they are. They don't know the power and authority they have over their spirit and their being, and that they can say no when they mean no without being nasty about it. I don't have anything to prove to anybody. If I say no, you might ask me why. And if it's your business, I will give you the real detailed version of it. But if it's not your business, you're not going to get the detailed version of it. You'll get what I offer you. Because this ship really has one captain. And I'm the co-pilot, right? I'm the co-captain of this ship. This ship is ran by my relationship with God. And it's important to me to maintain that prayer and meditation, that conscious contact with God, to know God's will for me and to have the power to carry it out. 11-step stuff. So for me to embark on a journey that is not thumbs up with the captain is foolishness on my part, because now I'm embracing complications because there's no grace that's flowing, because it has the thumbprint of my higher power on it, right? The seal, the okay, let's go get this, right? And so today we can draw boundaries from a healthy state. And it really is humility. Again, I want to emphasize, if you are a take it by storm person, that's great. But every storm is not ours to take. Know your strengths, build up your weaknesses now, but know your strengths. Know what you're supposed to be doing, what your 11th step is. I don't want to say called to do, because that sounds so religious, right? But know what your 11th step is. Know what you've been given to do by the God of your understanding, your higher power, and what you have been given the power and the strength to do. And just stick to that. Because that is where you're going to find productivity, success. Yeah, there'll be some failures, but it'll be because you're learning, not because you stink at doing it. It's you're learning how to do it. You have the tools already, or you wouldn't be in that position. I hope this is helpful, because this is very freeing. If you are a person that's listening this far into, because I know some people click through, but if you're listening this far into this meditation, this is going to really help you if you're able to apply the spiritual principle of humility in all of your affairs, where you are looking at things from a realistic perspective. You're looking at your circumstances and you're exercising humility and discernment when you're offering to contribute or serve anywhere, for anything, for anyone. If you do this, this should make that work that you're doing not only just enjoyable for you, but very enjoyable for the people that benefit from what you bring into the table. This is another 5-star meditation that I call adulting, right? This is adulting. Let's get past the point where we are just doing things to be doing things, that we're operating out of really false pride and false humility, right? Let's get to the point where we're engaging in doing the things that we know are given to us to do within the confines of our lives, that they make sense. They told me if it's not practical, it's not spiritual, right? So that it makes sense, that there's a natural line that follows what you're doing. Instead of being a jack of all trades, let's just be an expert in one or two. and then let someone else take on what they're strong at doing, what they're good at doing. And together we'll go a lot further. So grateful to be here with you today. I hope that you'll have a beautiful day on purpose. I most certainly intend to. Talk to you tomorrow.